Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha. Jaya Giri Varadari. Jaya Giri Varadari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha. Jaya Giri Varadari. Jaya Giri Varadari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha. Jaya Giri Varadari. Jaya Giri Varadari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha. Jaya Giri Varadari. Jaya Giri Varadari. Jaya Yashodanandana. Jaya Brajajana Ranjana. Jaya Brajajana Ranjana. 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 Jaya Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Jaya Kunja Bihari. 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 Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Dhamma Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Dava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Everybody Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Rama Oh Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Louder Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama Oh Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Everybody Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Oh Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo, Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Janitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Haribo. Jayom Vishnupal Paramamsa Prirajika Charja. Astotras of the Shishimali Divine Grace Lacy Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajika Charja. Astotras of the Shishimali Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Anantikoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namashar Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premsika Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mathura Dham Ki Jai, Navdvip Dham Ki Jai. Yamuna Devi Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, some of it the Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Janitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Pol, glorious to some devotees, Hare Krishna. O glorious to some devotees, Hare Krishna. O glorious to some devotees, Hare Krishna. O glorious to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. O glorious to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, so we're reading, so the classes, the Caitanya Charitamrita to the run-up to Gaura Purnima, is looking at the theme of Lord Chaitanya's compassion without discrimination. So I thought we would read from is Caitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela chapter 7. We'll recite text number 63, which is on the screen. And this chapter is entitled Lord Chaitanya in 5 Features. It will be an interesting pastime because it indicates Lord Chaitanya's extreme compassion, even to those who are considered from the scriptural point of view to be the most offensive, who are the Mayavadis. Okay, so we'll recite 63 together. Ihan Aisa, Sunaha Shripada. Apavitrastane Vaisha Kiba Avasada. Ihan Aisa, Sunaha Shripada. Apavitrastane Vaisha Kiba Avasada. Ihan Aisa Sunaha Shripada. Apavitra Stani Vaisha Kiba Avashada. Vaishnavis. Ihan Aisa, come here. Ihan Aisa, come here. Shanaha, kindly here. Shripada, Your Holiness. Apavitra, unholy. Stane, place. Vaisa, you were sitting. Kiba, what is that? Avasada, lamentation. Translation. So, please come here, Your Holiness. Why do you sit in that unclean place? What has caused your lamentation? So this is Prakashananda Saraswati, the leader of the Mayavadi sannyasis, addressing Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is in the assembly of the Mayavadi sannyasis, but he's washed his feet and he is sat in the place where the feet are washed, so it's considered an unclean place. And this is how he's being addressed by Prakashananda Saraswati, who, by the way, had previously criticized him. So, purport. Here is a distinction between Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Prakashananda Saraswati. In the material world, everyone wants to introduce himself as very important and great. But Caitanya Mahaprabhu introduced himself very humbly and meekly. The Mayavadis were sitting in an exalted position, and Caitanya Mahaprabhu sat in a place that was not even clean. Therefore, the Mayavadi sannyasis thought that he must have been aggrieved for some reason. And Prakashananda Saraswati inquired about the cause for his lamentation. Okay, please repeat after me. Please come here. Please come here. Your Holiness. Why do you sit in that unclean place? What has caused your lamentation? Om Jnanatammarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Twam Sijivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakamvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so let me begin by begging the blessings of all the devotees. It's a real honor to be here with all of you and to ask for your mercy, so we can speak something on this very beautiful literature of the Chaitanya Charitamrita and this topic of Lord Chaitanya's compassion without discrimination. So there is a pastime with Srimati Radharani. So in Radhakund, there was a jackal, and the jackal's being harassed by some of the children. And so Srimati Radharani, she heard the cries of the jackal. And so, being moved, she actually gave that jackal shelter. Not only did she give the jackal shelter, she allowed the jackal to become one of her associates. So, Krishna's merciful. More merciful than Krishna is Srimati Radharani. And her mercy is manifest to us in this age of Kali as Bhakti Avatar. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who comes specifically Radha Bhava Duty Suvalitam. He comes with both the mood of a devotee, but also the luster of a devotee. That luster is Srimati Radharani's own luster. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari. Her golden complexion. It is explained that gold is actually the color of prema. That is its natural hue, let's say. Srimati Radharani, her compassion is so extraordinary that when she comes, combined form, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, Nahi Anya. When Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani combine, they appear as this golden avatar. At the same time, we see that not everyone takes the mercy. Right? So on the one hand, there's this idea of compassion without discrimination. And at the same time, some people take the Krishna consciousness, some people don't. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has explained this dichotomy. He explains in the Madhura Kadambini that Bhakti Devi, devotion personified, impels within the heart of a devotee the desire to give bhakti to others. She stimulates the devotee's compassion for conditioned souls. And because of stimulating the devotee's compassion for conditioned souls, the pure devotee, and of course for us, the exemplar is Srila Prabhupada, the pure devotee feels impelled to share this Krishna consciousness with other people. But it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. There are different levels of devotee. Generally, the Kanishta Adhikaris are concerned only for their own liberation. Right? And often the Kanishta Adhikaris, they're not so expert in preaching. Prabhupada says in Nectar of Instruction that the preachers are considered to be what level? Madhyams, Madhyam Adhikaris. Because they discriminate. They give mercy to the innocent. They give mercy to the innocent. They avoid those who are envious, right? They always engage in serving the pure devotee. Right? Like that. So they act with that discrimination. So the Kanishtas may not have so much discrimination and may be more self-centered. On the other extreme, you have the Uttama Adhikaris. The Uttama Adhikaris consider that everyone is a devotee except me. So generally, the Uttama Adhikaris don't preach. Right? What the Uttama Adhikaris do, They may affect the atmosphere of the world with the purity of their own practices. But generally, the Uttama Adhikaris don't preach. So if the Kanishtas don't preach because of selfishness, and if the Uttamas don't preach because they see everyone as being more devoted than them, then it leaves one category. That category that's left behind is which category? The Madhyamadhikaris. At the same time, there is a distinction between the normal Madhyam Adhikari and Srila Prabhupada, or those in his class. Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they're Uttama Adhikaris, but they have the vision of a Madhyam. Okay? So even though they have the potency of an Uttama Adhikari, and that potency, by the way, is extremely significant. Even though they have the potency of an Uttama Adhikari, they have the vision of a Madhyam, so therefore they discriminate. And what is that discrimination? They discriminate in such a way to show us how to engage in this Krishna consciousness process. But it doesn't stop there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he explains how different levels of potency interact with the devotees and the non-devotees. So he explains in Caitanya Mahaprabhu that one who has attained love for Krishna, he can raise anyone to that, he or she can raise anyone to that same platform of love of God. One who has attained bhava, ecstatic devotion, they can raise a devotee to bhava, and they can raise a non-devotee to the level of ruchi, taste. So it's not that all potencies are the same. Depending on the potency of the individual, that affects the ability for them to raise others up in their devotional life. In other words, what we give is according to what we actually have. In this particular pastime, you have the most potent. The Supreme Personality of God himself believes acting as a devotee. And what does he do? The most potent. This purple is so beautiful. Prabhupada says in the material world, everyone wants to introduce himself as very important and great. Does that sound familiar to anyone in the room? Okay. Right? So this idea, when will they realize how wonderful I am? Right? People are smiling, but we all know what we're talking about. Everyone will think like that, In our movement, it also comes out in some way, right? So we have a certain standard humility in ISKCON, right? So the standard things that we'll do, we'll bow down like this, we'll say that we're fallen, all this kind of stuff. And you're thinking, really? You really think that? You really believe that? And Krishna will test that theory, okay? Krishna will test that in some point in our lives. But here is something very different. This Chaitanya Charitamrita, it should touch the devotee. It is such a heartfelt literature. Sometimes myself and some devotee friends, we've been talking about this ability to practice devotional service from the heart. It is absolutely essential because devotional service, it is done via the instrument of the heart. We do so many things in this movement, and they should be done, they must be done. Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Shri Shri Gaunitai Guru Parampara Srila Prabhupada Maharani ki jai. The instrument is the heart. It is unfortunately possible to practice for many years and not to make so much advancement if we remain hard-hearted in our Krishna consciousness. Everything has its lakshana. Everything has its symptoms. The beauty of this Caitanya Charitamrita is we see the exemplary behavior of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, but it's not just a behavior of him being the Supreme Lord. He's acting to show us what to do as devotees. So he sat in the place with people who are considered by Shastra to be the most offensive to the Lord. Mayavadi, Krishna, Aparadi. Right? The Mayavadis are considered to be the most offensive. What has he done here? This is instructive for every single one of us as devotees. What has he done? He's gone into that assembly. He sat down in the place where others washed their feet. And then in the next verse, I'll just read it to you. So Prakashananda Saraswati has inquired from him, what's wrong, right? Why are you lamenting? Why are you sitting in this unclean place? This is what Lord Chaitanya replies. The Lord replied, I belong to a lower order of sannyasis. Therefore, I do not deserve to sit with you. This is very, very instructive. What happens in our devotional life is always mediated by the quality of our consciousness. Always. If we hold on to this false ego, if we hold on to pride, it will ruin everything. It will ruin everything in our own personal life. It will ruin everything in the movement as well. Pride means pride for position. Pride means politics. Pride means pratishta. This desire to be worshipped, name and fame. And ironically, pride means insecurity. Behind pride, there's a very fragile and insecure individual who's so insecure that they're looking for something external to prop up what is actually a deep inner sense of, a deep inner lack of realization of what? Mamai vamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana amsa. They forget. What do they forget? What do we forget? Amsa. We forget that we're part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So simultaneously, in this material world, we deal with these different dynamics simultaneously. The Sri Upanishad talks about this, the importance of understanding both transcendence and what? By side, nescience. So we straddle these two worlds as a devotee, transcendence and nescience. So therefore, we see this behavior is not good. Right? We're not trying to be blind. What does Prabhupada say? There's one letter Prabhupada makes a point that we surrender with our intelligence, but we do not surrender our intelligence. Right? Sometimes what happens in devotional life, let's be very real, is that sometimes the teachings are misapplied, or they're misinterpreted, or even worse, they're manipulated. So something will be taken out of context. When you take something out of its proper context, you change its actual meaning. Right? And something's taken out of context. So sometimes in the name of not being offensive, what we're really saying is don't think. Right? Close your eyes, don't look. And especially it's bad when people are misbehaving who are, it's bad when anyone's misbehaving. Let's put it that way. So we straddle these two worlds, transcendence and nescience. So we see what the reality is, but we respond with compassion. If we do any extreme, if one extreme or the other, it's going to be a problem in our own spiritual lives. So one extreme is that we close our eyes. You can get away with that. You can get away with that, but you better be an Uttama Adhikari. Right? You can get away with that if you're an Uttama Adhikari. Because then, just like the cowherd boys, you can go into the mouth of Aghasura. No problem. Right? We know that Krishna will come and save us. No problem. Right? But unless one has that particular level of realization, one should act accordingly. So there is discrimination, but we don't discriminate in the way that the materialists discriminate. This is the other extreme. The other extreme is now people become labeled, right? So what is it? Cancel culture, right? Right? So criticism and cancel culture. I'm going to cancel you, Prabhu. Right? See the irony. I'm calling you master, and I'm going to cancel you. It was very interesting when I was reading up on this. One of the points that were being made is that it's actually when we go out to share Krishna consciousness with other people, it's so important because when we meet the seemingly bad habits of other individuals, other living entities, what it is meant for us to do is to turn that lens within and see our own bad habits. And then when I see those bad habits in another person, I see them in myself, I'm like, I can relate. I'm also like him, you know? I'm also like him. We know from scripture that Jai Vijay, they're cursed, and Bhagavatam says they appear how many times on the earth? It says 3 times. So how many times do they appear? 4 times, right? Like that. It's a different culture. They came 3 times. Then they came back to the spiritual, but they came again in Chaitanya Leela as who? Jagai and Madai. So they came a 4th time. Right? And in that particular pastime, the Jagai and Madai, they offended Lord Chaitanya's own close associates. He was prepared to kill them. Lord Nityananda said, look, in Kali Yuga, everyone's like this. So rather than killing them, we should deliver them. Because if you kill them, you're going to have to kill everyone in Kali Yuga. Okay? So we are the recipients of this extreme mercy. We ourselves. So when we hear about Lord Chaitanya's compassion and without discrimination, we shouldn't think it's for these other people. We shouldn't think it's for someone else. We should think that I myself am a recipient of that extreme compassion. And it should touch us to have a certain mood of humility towards others. These qualities go together. You can't have deep compassion without humility. And we can't have deep humility without compassion. What is this humility? Here, this is a point. He's not pretending, Caitanya Mahaprabhu. When he sits in such a place, when he's trying to help other people, he does it from a very, very deep place of feeling. It is a very, very powerful point. This understanding of Vipralambha, there's so many subtle dimensions to it. When a pure devotee is preaching, that pure devotee, they feel separation from Krishna. Excuse me. They feel separation from the Lord. Now, what fuels their preaching to other people is that pure devotee who is acting with the vision of a madhyam, he feels separated or she feels separated from Krishna. And when they look out into the world, they notice, my God, it's not just me. All these other living entities, they're also separated from the same Krishna who I feel separation from. And the separation that I feel causes me this great pain. And because it causes me this great pain, all of these other living entities, they must also be feeling pain as well. So what can I do to alleviate the pain that they're experiencing? And therefore that pure devotee preaches. It is compassion without passion. Right? Contrast that. We sometimes see in our movement, we're preaching. Have you noticed that? Right? But our preaching is sometimes compassion with a huge amount of passion. Right? Let me kick this person out the way because, we're doing the real preaching, Prabhu, right? Like whatever it is. Sometimes the spiritual master comes and you have the servants of the guru and they're practically kicking everyone else out the way in the name of serving their spiritual master. This is all Kanishta behavior. This is all Kanishta behavior. Anyone who does not have genuine respect for all the Vaishnavas and claims to be a proper servant of the spiritual master is a genuine hypocrite. It is a family affair. The Krishna consciousness movement is a family affair. Compassion is meant to be without passion because our purposes of preaching can often be mixed, right, polluted. So there's a genuine desire to give Krishna consciousness to other people. It's there. But it's not exclusive. Right? Has anyone seen that? They really want to preach, but there's also some other things on the agenda at the same time. Right? Like that. Our job is to weed out those other things on the agenda so we come to this anya bilasita shunyam. Jnanakamada navritam. Anukyo lena krishnanu shilanam bhakti uttama. It is meant to be one-pointed, only desire to serve and please Krishna. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu demonstrates that. Interestingly enough, where does this pastime go? In a future purport, Prabhupada will explain that Prakashananda Saraswati, get this, so even though he's criticized the Supreme Personality of God himself, not some neophyte devotee, he's criticized the Lord himself. But what does he do? In inquiring in this way and asking the Lord to come away from that particular place and to join the other sannyasis, Prabhupada explains that Prakashananda Saraswati he's done some unconscious devotional service. He has done some service for the Lord unknowingly, this Agyata Sukriti. And because of this Agyata Sukriti is so powerful that he will eventually become a devotee of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So this is also instructive for us. This Lord Chaitanya's compassion, it is carried in each and every one of you in this movement. I repeat, you are distributing love of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya's own particular brand of love of Godhead. Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtan. There are different brands of prema. There are different brands. Golokera Prema. Dan. Dan means wealth. The treasure of divine love in Goloka Vrindavan is manifesting in this age as the congregational chanting of the holy names of Krishna. So it's not prema, Goloka prema. There are different types of prema. There's Vaikuntha prema, but this is Goloka prema. And it is being distributed in the Sankirtan movement, which is started by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So Lord Chaitanya's compassion is carried by Lord Chaitanya's followers. And what we're meant to do is to try to be more and more proper vessels of love. And that is not just in the preaching, it is in every single interaction, every single moment of every single day. Mercy, the quality of real mercy is that it actually expands, and real mercy touches the heart, nourishes the heart, strengthens the heart. Right? It actually is, there is nothing more powerful than love. There is nothing more powerful than loving exchanges. I remember we were taking different groups to different spiritual retreats. And in one retreat place, the devotees told us that their teacher, their spiritual master, explained that this is the preaching we're doing. He explained to them, what I want you to do is no hard selling to the guests. Right? No trying to push anything on the guests. What he told these disciples, he said that when they come, what we want you to do is give them so much quality service and hospitality. It was actually Radhanath Maharaj speaking about the eco-village. When they come, you give them quality service, you serve them properly, sincerely, with great hospitality and attentiveness, and everything will come from there. Right? And whenever we go there, we see everything's coming. So our preaching and our compassion, it is meant to be something that's embodied. It's easier to speak than to embody. It's easier to say something than to actually live it. And this is the difficulty that we actually have. It's easier to point to the faults in other people than to look at the faults within ourselves, because when we look in ourselves, it's painful. It's painful to look in the heart. And that's why in Kali Yuga, no one wants to do it. In fact, in Kali Yuga, there's an entire industry that's built around not looking in the heart, and it's called social media. Right? Because by social media, you can look everywhere else except within. But all the amazing transformations happen when we look within the heart. When we confront what is within us that needs to be uprooted, and to actually do that particular work, to uproot. There's a natural correlation between the obstacles that we face in our lives and the obstacles that we face within our hearts. If you want to have an easy spiritual life, if you want to have a spiritual life whereby the external situations do not constantly derail you, the easiest way is to remove the obstacles when they present themselves inside. And then when the obstacles present themselves outside, you'll be able to maneuver through them with exactly the same conscientiousness, exactly the same attentiveness with which you removed the obstacles internally. And we should know that whenever there's an external obstacle that stops us moving forward in spiritual life, it's not external. Whenever there's something, you can say, it's this devotee, they did this to me, right? You know, it's that devotee, they did that to me. I'm not practicing because of this. No. Those devotees or those external situations are just symbols of an internal anatta that we, for whatever reason, either ignored or refused to work on. Right? So everything about our association in Krishna consciousness acts like a mirror. It shows us where we actually are. Right? You'll see this. Right now, if you look in our hearts, there's some of us, we're really into Krishna consciousness as long as we get our pratishta. Right? Someone has to tell you you're a wonderful devotee, give you, you come to the temple, they give you the Mahaprasad, whatever it is. And as long as we get that, we're going to practice. Right? But if we don't get that, we become disturbed. Oh, they didn't respect me properly. Why should you get respect? This point here, Caitanya Mahaprabhu, respecting everyone, not expecting any respect for oneself. Have we heard this verse before? Yeah, we've heard it before. Right? This Trinadapi, Sunicheno, Taropi, Ahishtuna, Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. This is where we come to. That verse, I was asked by one of my mentees about how do we know that we're advancing through Anata Nivriti. So I explained to him, this third verse, according to our acharyas, this third verse relates to Nishta. So after Anata Nivriti is Nishta. So what that means is if we see within ourselves, I'm not tolerant, I'm not humble, I'm constantly demanding respect from other people, and I don't respect others myself. Right? And, I'm constantly looking for attention, pratishta, worship. If I see that those symptoms are not becoming less, in other words, if I see that I'm not becoming, not reading, if I'm not becoming the third verse of Shikshashtakam, it means that I'm not progressing through Anata Nivriti. Right? Sometimes people have this thing in spirit, you can't tell. Do you know how many books Prabhupada has written? So you can tell? Right? This is the whole point. It is a real science. Everything has its symptoms, even to the point that actually at different levels of advancement, there's also a smarana. At different stages of advancement, there's also a particular meditation that spontaneously arises in the devotee. At different levels of realization, different levels of advancement. All of this is stated. So if you know this, you know whatever the person is meditating on, that indicates their level of advancement. Specific characteristics in their behaviors, that indicates their level of advancement. There are certain things that we just do not do at certain levels of advancement. Right? We don't go around playing politics at certain levels of advancement. It's just not done. So when we go around playing silly political games in the name of institution, that means we're dealing with Kanishta Adhikaris. And it doesn't matter, by the way, it doesn't matter how big the project is. It's not the point. The point is the actual characteristics and qualities. This is the real point. Okay? So again, it behooves us to look within ourselves and to see what is actually going on in my consciousness. And we're giving a class later on, and we're looking at this idea of Krishna consciousness, religion, or spiritual science. The key difference. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you to. God bless you. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you. So the difference between religion and spiritual science is one thing. There's one difference. In religion, God is the medium or the means, right? Krishna is the means. In spiritual science, Krishna is the goal. One difference, right? So in religion, I'm going to use God, I'm going to use Krishna for whatever I want. I've got an agenda, and you, Krishna, come on, sort it out, right? Now, didn't you see, I came to Janmashtami. I even fasted till midnight like those other crazy devotees. Now, what are you going to do for me? Right? In religion, Krishna is the means. It is actually, the issue with religion is that religion means that people are using Krishna as their servant. And you know what's really heartbreaking about it? What's heartbreaking about it is that he wants to be your servant anyway. That's what people don't understand. You don't need to force Krishna. Krishna's not like the conditioned living entities. He enjoys serving the devotees. He wants to give himself to you. So in religion, Krishna is the means. In devotion, in devotional science, Krishna is the goal. He's the prayojana. So this mood of reciprocation, this is what keeps our Krishna consciousness so vibrant, so alive, so sweet, because you constantly see how even though we've got no qualification, there's someone behind the scenes who's constantly showing me affection. Isn't that a sweet life to live? Right? Whatever the situation, good times, bad times, behind all of it, if you have proper vision, if the false ego does not get in the way, you feel empowered because you see day in, day out, there's someone behind the scenes. And it's not just like our friends. Let's be honest. Sometimes with friends, you can hide. You can hide all the stuff that all the weaknesses, everything like that. But you're talking about the supreme personality of God. Try hiding from him. He's in your heart. He can see everything. Not just the embarrassing things you did last week, right? The embarrassing things you did last lifetime. Whatever it is, many lifetimes, all lifetimes. But he still shows up with love. Lord Chaitanya's compassion without passion. Right? Without discrimination. And that's how we understand it. And it's the awareness of that that makes this Krishna consciousness so much sweeter. I was sharing this recently. So Radha Maharaj had a very wonderful way of pulling this. He said that when we're proud, whatever happens to you in spiritual life, pride means that whatever you receive, you just feel like, well, I deserved it. So therefore, whatever you receive is immediately gobbled up by false pride, by a false ego. And one never feels satisfied. They always feel, well, it's about time. You should have given me more. What's wrong with you? When's the next thing coming? Like that. But he explained that when we are humble, and we said humility and compassion go together. When we are humble means I don't deserve, in fact, not just I don't deserve anything, I deserve many more challenges. I deserve many more obstacles because of all the ridiculous things that I've done in my previous lives. I deserve many more challenges, but still I'm being allowed to associate with the devotees. Still, I'm being allowed to hear Chaitanya Charitamrita. Still, I'm being given the opportunity, not every day, I'm being given the opportunity moment by moment to come back to eternal life. This, dear Lord, you're so kind. My favorite verse, it's a beautiful verse, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.3.35. Na prema shravanadi bhakti apiva. This statement, na prema. So Rupa Goswami says, I don't have love of Godhead. Shravanadi bhakti apiva. Nor do I have love for the process of Shravana, Kirtan, hearing, chanting, etc. He said, I don't have a high birth. Right? I'm not born in a high family. I don't have mystic powers. I don't have knowledge. But I don't have anything. He says, but because you, dear Lord, you give your mercy to the most fallen. Again, this theme here, everyone wants to think himself very important and great. It's exactly the opposite mood of the devotees who are making advancement. You see? And this is why we have to read. If you don't read, you'll be carried by the current of false ego. And you'll think that, and that includes practicing devotees, by the way. You'll think that my advancement is because I've got more prestige. And you won't understand. That bhakta who can who's sweeping the temple room floor, and he or she's in ecstasy because they just feel, I'm so grateful. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says to clean the temple is the most exalted service. To clean the floor. You won't recognize that devotee who's doing that service with full heart, understanding that I'm so lucky to be able to do this. The dust of the Vaishnavas is on this floor that I'm cleaning. Wow. You won't know that person's making huge advancement because we don't see things properly. And there's nothing neutral. There's no neutrality. Everything in the material world is upstream, everything in the material world is acting against the devotional current. Right? So we're trying to swim upstream and the material energy is going downstream. Right? So we're swimming against the tide. That's the way it works. And if you want to swim against the tide, you need one thing. You need a huge amount of strength. When we associate with devotees, the strength comes from the association. Not just the association. The strength comes from the right association. The strength comes from the receptive association. Going back to this theme from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So this point, even though Bhakti Devi herself empowers and inspires the pure devotee to give mercy to others, it doesn't stop there. Because now that we've talked about that, then linked to that, we have to talk about, well, why is it that some people get the opportunity and some people don't? Some people take the opportunity, some people don't. We've talked about the different levels of potency, right? So the person who's approaching someone to give them Krishna consciousness, their potency has an impact, right? Their potency has an impact. Even someone who's a devotee, who's a practicing devotee, they're not yet liberated, right? So we talked about how one who has attained love, they can give prema to others. One who's at bhava bhakti, they can raise practicing devotees to bhava, and they can raise non-devotees to ruchi, right? To taste, right? But even someone who is not yet liberated, who's a devotee and they're not yet liberated, they can still, if they're a serious practitioner, they can still instill faith, shraddha, in a non-devotee. They can still give something. So this is one factor, but the other factor is receptivity. This pastime greatly symbolizes that. Receptivity comes from one's previous unconscious devotional service. Prakashananda Saraswati, he's done some service for the Lord. He's gained this agyata sukriti. Therefore, when Lord Chaitanya starts to preach to him, he can actually hear. Right? That's how it works. So we are in the business of giving people qualification, adhikar, for devotion. Right? And this is very interesting. This is where it gets so interesting, because now there are many different combinations. Sometimes a devotee is preaching to someone, and that person becomes incredibly serious in their Krishna consciousness, right? And the easy thing is to think, you know what, I did that. Yes, the old potency's working, that kind of idea. But actually, no, they were more advanced than you in the previous life. So therefore, even though you told them about Krishna consciousness, now they're excelling. Why are they excelling? Because you reminded them of the practice that they already had, right? You see that sometimes. Someone brings someone else to Krishna consciousness, but the person they bring accelerates far faster. That's another side effect of the pure devotee who acts like a madhyam. They can affect more souls, and the speed at which they can elevate a practicing devotee is faster. That's the other thing. So often it's not discussed like that, but all devotees, it's not equal, right? It's not equal. There's that differentiation. The more advanced the individual, that's one factor. Second factor, the more receptive we are. And our receptivity is also based upon how we've been practicing. Every one of us in this room, we're not hearing the same class in the same way. It never is like that. And it never will be like that, by the way. Because our movement, our philosophy, our teaching, they're all personal. Everyone's personal. And everyone is a different stage in their spiritual journey. So we're not hearing the same class in the same way. Some people, they'll hear the class and they'll think, you know what? I wish he's finished. It's really it's prasadam time. I missed, I ate, early yesterday. I'm really hungry, right? Different people will respond I'm not reading your minds, don't worry, but different people will respond in different ways. And that's the reality of it. But this is a real science. This Krishna consciousness is a real science. And what's implied by this is that if we take it consciously, you can make a lot faster progress. Right? There are many devotees, they'll drift through Krishna consciousness. Just drifting. That actually, by the way, that's a symptom. If someone's drifting through Krishna consciousness, it distinctly indicates that they're what level? They're kanishta. Because the madhyam, one of the symptoms of the madhyam is their knowledge. If you have knowledge, it does two things. One is it destroys mechanical practicing. You see? And by the way, knowledge doesn't mean gyan. Knowledge means vigyan. Vigyan destroys mechanical practice. Right? What is it Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj was saying to them? Krishna consciousness is like the mafia. Once you join, you can never leave because you know too much, right? It's like that. It destroys mechanical practice. It's not just reading. Sometimes devotees read. The difficulty is reading. If you see a devotee who only reads, it means they're not reading properly, right? Because why? Because the books give an instruction. What do the books tell you? You're meant to read in the association of who? Of the devotees. Do you know why that's the case? Because when you read in the association of devotees, it helps you to get context. Helps you to understand how all the pieces fit together. So anyone who thinks, I don't need to go around and see the devotees, I'll just read by myself and I'll understand all of it by my own reading, you're in trouble. Because the anatas get projected on the pages. Just like the anatas get projected in the relationships, just like the anatas get projected in day-to-day life, unless we're reading in the association, we don't understand things in its proper context. It's just like you're seeing something, so what you're seeing is real, but there can be a distortion. Right? It's slightly distorted. Reading in the association is like someone who says, look, let me just adjust that frame for you. Right? This whole point about the Mayavadis, etc., Lord Chaitanya, he's there. Now, at this point, he's replied, I belong to a lower order of sannyas. Again, this is a mood. We're meant to consider, in order to preach, we have to humble ourselves to other people. Because preaching means it's not about you anymore. Right? Lord Chaitanya's compassion. To be qualified to give Lord Chaitanya's compassion, it requires us to do something on ourselves. Otherwise, what we will do, is, and this is the worst thing you can do, by the way. The worst thing you can do is misrepresent the love of Lord Chaitanya. The very worst thing that anyone can do is to misrepresent prema. Lord Chaitanya has come to give prema. But if they see bad example, bad behavior, bad dealings by the devotees, it becomes so pervasive, it literally creates a culture. Right? And no one should think that they're immune to that. Culture means, well, I've seen these people do it, and it will seem to be okay. But because I saw those people do it, and no one said anything, and it will seem to be okay, then you know what? It must be okay for me to behave badly as well. So one bad example becomes two bad examples. Two bad examples become four bad examples. And after a while, it becomes a subculture. So we should not misrepresent prema. Lord Chaitanya's compassion without discrimination has to be shown in the character of each and every single one of us. Therefore, Prabhupada says, you will know my followers because they're gentlemen. Gentlewomen and gentlemen. Right? Always proper behavior. By the way, is that easy to do? It's not easy. That's the fun of it. That's the fun of it. The fun is that it's not easy. If you want an adventure, try to make spiritual progress. Right? If you want a real adventure, you try and make spiritual progress in Kali Yuga. Right? And if you want a real adventure, try and make spiritual progress in Kali Yuga in ISKCON. It's a beautiful thing. You'll be tested so much. You'll be tested so much in one way or another. And those tests, you know what? They're good for us. It's good. There'll be some people, they'll give you a hard time and you'll think, but you're supposed to be devotion. You're supposed to be devotee. You're supposed to smile at me and tell me how wonderful I am, right? Why are you giving me a hard time? It's good for you, right? That poking is good for us. Why? Because it shows us what's actually inside. Yeah? That poking is good for us. And when we come to the point where people poke us, and the only thing that comes out is compassion without discrimination, that means we'll have attained something very, very great. Again, caveat. Compassion without discrimination does not mean that you allow yourself to be mistreated. Okay? This will be very clear, because again, without proper understanding of spiritual knowledge, it can always be distorted. What happens factually is if someone has lack of proper self-respect or self-esteem, they read something and they think, you know what, that means I should allow myself to be mistreated. And then what happens is, because they don't have the adhikar for that, after a certain point they get burnt out, and what do? They leave the movement. And it just takes someone to say, look, have you read everything on this topic? Well, yeah, but Lord Chaitanya said, yeah, but also Prabhupada says sometimes you love people from a distance, you respect people from a distance. Again, this is why the teachings have to be read in association, because then you take all the relevant statements on a particular subject and you bring them together, and then you look and see, of all these relevant statements, which ones apply to me at my level of advancement in the journey. Right? Prabhupada was being criticized by someone. I don't remember the exact pastime, but when the person eventually stopped, Prabhupada said, I must have done something to that person in a previous life. Right? And he means it. He feels that. Of course, Prabhupada is sinless, but that's his mood. He actually feels that way. Now, what do you think when someone gives you a hard time? This devotee, Krishna, you better mess him up, man. Show him that, show him that he can't mess with me. Right? These fantasies that go on in our minds. No one talks about it, but I know what goes on. And these are the things that we have to uproot. So we should be able to notice, look at how I responded to that particular person. Compassion without discrimination, but with wisdom. There's an integration with all of them. Compassion without discrimination, but with wisdom means I see behind the negative behavior of another person. Right? I take their deeper situation into account, but it doesn't stop there. I also see what my own limitations are. Right? The ability to see my own limitations is called what? It's called humility. Because I'm not so spiritually strong, because I'm not so qualified, I can't take this without it affecting my spiritual practice and my devotion. It's not because they're bad no, it's because I'm weak. Because I'm not so strong, I can't handle this, therefore I'm keeping a respectful distance. So there's compassion, there's an understanding of something deeper, and at the same time, there's also an understanding that it also says something about me. All of these ingredients come together, and when we have this mood, we constantly beg for the Lord's grace. I don't deserve this devotional knowledge, practice, association, but because you, dear Lord, give your mercy to the most fallen, I'm always hopeful. Right? Because you give your dear Lord to the most fallen, I know if there's one thing that I can say that I have, I can say that I'm fallen. Right? In Kali Yuga, if there's one thing, if you're looking for someone who's fallen, don't worry, I'm here. Right? I've arrived. You can give me your mercy. Again, it makes the exchange incredibly sweet. What happens in our devotional life is if we have the wrong mentality, if we're proud instead of humble, if we're intolerant instead of tolerant, if we're harsh instead of compassionate, the person who loses out is only ourselves. You should be under no illusion that, I'm being harsh to other people, I'm really getting them back, I'm really going to show them. No, you're just missing out for yourself. There are some devotees, they relish this Krishna consciousness. And when I say, I mean, they really, I know devotees like that. They relish their Krishna consciousness. They absolutely love it, and they feel tremendous happiness. And by the way, that doesn't mean that they're pure devotees. These are practicing devotees, but they love their Krishna consciousness. So they love it. And they're experiencing all kinds of things all the time. All the time. Different kinds of reciprocation from Krishna. And what I've noticed about them, as opposed to others, is that they've been able to remain soft-hearted in this practice. Okay? And this compassion, this humility, if you can tell that you have it by one thing, and that is that you've remained in your life soft-hearted. Right? That soft-heartedness is so powerful. Why is it so powerful? Because you've remained in a state where you're able to experience and be sensitive to the love of others and the love of God. This is the beautiful dynamic of the teachings. The beautiful dynamic of the teachings is that you know it's working by how much you're able to give and feel the love of others. And you'll know it's not working when you become cynical, skeptical, bitter, resentful, hard-hearted, right? Vengeful also. So when we see, not just, and when we see, and again, the emphasis is not on seeing it with other people. The emphasis is in seeing it within who? Within ourselves. When we see those symptoms, it means that there's a red flag, right? It's an alarm. You're not practicing this properly, right? And then the question is, what do I need to adjust? Is it that I'm associating with devotees who like to also be offensive, right? Feel free to associate with who you like, but don't think that that's going to take you back to Godhead, right? This is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. You can do whatever you like, but you can't get the same result, right? Free will is there. You do whatever you want. But if you think that you're going to get the same result by acting improperly, good luck. because you're going to need it. Okay? So if I'm becoming bitter, resentful, hard-hearted, political, that's another nonsense thing, right? I'm deliberately stabbing people in the back for my own agenda. It means you're not practicing properly. Right? And the most heartbreaking thing is you can think that, and then when you leave the world, then you'll be shown you could have gone back in this lifetime, right? But there were a few things that you didn't quite understand, right? And there were a few situations where you behaved improperly and you did not deal with the devotees properly. So unfortunately, because there's so many exams that you failed to pass, we're going to have to send you back to the material world. So what we have to understand is don't become that devotee. Okay? Don't become that devotee. Yeah. So Lord Chaitanya's been compassionate, compassion without discrimination. Our job is to receive that compassion and is to be a container for that compassion and is to share, distribute that compassion. And it can only work if we take to the process properly, and we know what we're taking to the process properly if we are also feeling that compassion. Compassion and humility go together, and it's demonstrated by being soft-hearted. Right? Practicing devotional service with a genuine concern for the well-being of each and every devotee. And we go through that anartha nivriti, we get through to nishta, and we get through to the symptoms of nishta. Right? Trinada pisa nichino, Taroa pisa hisnana, amanina manadena, kirtaniya sudahari. And when we have that humility, tolerance, respecting other people, not desiring respect for other people, then what's the fruit? What's the phal? The fruit of that. Kirtaniya sudahari. Because of those qualities, one can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. We'll end on this point. The smaller I become in false ego, the bigger Krishna becomes, the bigger divinity becomes in my life. That's it. There's only space for two, right? So the bigger the false ego is in my life, Krishna takes a proportionate back seat. But if we're able to reduce the false ego, you'll see that Krishna takes up maximum space in your life, and all the sweetness, all the miracles, all the devotion, all the love, all the ecstasy, all the joy, the very thing that everyone is looking for, that floods into our life unlimitedly. I know one devotee, I went here, and he was early years in Krishna consciousness, and he had an experience like that, and he felt that he was literally flooded with devotion, flooded with mercy. And he actually felt it like a physical experience. A physical experience, you know? So all of these things are available to each and every one of us. Prabhupada, I think he was in front of Radha Londonishvara, and he turned to the devotees, and he said to them, he said, I've captured Krishna, and I'm holding him captive in my heart. He said, now you come and take. Okay, so we'll stop there. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Janitai Gaura Purnima, Hari Hari Bol. Okay, almost time. So maybe you have one question, and then I can see a hand at the back, Krishna Saka, if we could pass the microphone, please. And to the organizers, feel free to stop me whenever I need to be stopped.
Thank you very much for speaking about Pratishtha and pride. I felt you're giving a dissertation on my life, so really... My life.
Much
mine. As and when we notice these anarthas within our heart, particularly that of pride and Pratishtha and the desire for respect, do you have any guidance in terms of what the remedy is for that?
Yeah, so there's many things that can be done. See, first of all, to be honest, a good amount of the problem is solved just by recognizing it. The tyranny that we have in Kali Yuga is the tyranny of being unconscious. So we've got bad qualities and everyone can see it. Everyone can see it. You're proud. Everyone can see it except us. And even if someone tells us in a nice way, we become defensive. So that's the first problem, is actually recognizing that we have bad qualities within ourselves. The first problem is having the strength and the maturity to look at that which is within. I had a very interesting experience. We were on a call just on Friday, myself and a few others. And I'd had this inkling before, and it came up again on the call. We're reading a devotional book. And it came up, and it's come up again and again, and just keeps blipping on the radar. The importance of introspection and vulnerability. I'm gonna leave you with this question to think about. Do you have devotees that you associate with regularly who you trust enough that you can be vulnerable about your own anartas? Because people talk about association, but often, to be honest, the association is superficial. Because what you'll see in our devotional service is that sometimes the devotees who associate with each other, they don't trust each other. And even worse than that, they've got good reason not to trust each other. I'm sorry to say, I'm just being very honest. They've got good reason because they've seen that devotee stab people under the, in the back or throw people under the bus. It's like, they'd be foolish to trust that person. We can't do things foolishly. So what is the solution? One extreme is not to trust. The healthy balance, the one extreme is not to trust. The other extreme is to trust blindly. Both of them don't work. Healthy medium, find devotees who you can trust. There's something very, very sweet that happens in devotee association. It replicates what happens with Krishna. If you have actual association that you trust, then you can be vulnerable. And what happens when you're vulnerable? You can say, I messed up. I said this to this person, or when this person said it to me, I was so upset and I was really wishing badly for them, right? You can be open and honest like that. And what will your mature devotee association do? Will they condemn you and pull a post up on Instagram? No. What they'll do is say, I get it. I've also had that experience. What could we do about it? It doesn't become, right, we've got something on them now, right? We found, I recorded that. They admitted that they're like this. Nothing like that. It's like, yeah, I get it. I've also had that challenge. What could we do about it? How can we get together? How can we work on that? How can we study that anatta? Maybe there's a pastime in Krishna Leela that we can read together which distinctly talks about that particular anatta. By the way, there are those pastimes, right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's written about the killing of the different demons in Krishna's pastimes and how they represent the annihilation of different anattas. We can read that together. We can churn that together. Right? That's one thing we can do. We can turn to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, I've got a real issue. I find that when I'm around devotees and they do this, I become upset like this. Prabhupada, please help me to change. Right? We can make some focused prayers. Right? We can study. I'm going to do a deep study on this particular issue. Another interesting thing is when we find that we have a certain way of seeing the world which is unhealthy for our spiritual progress, we can practice doing the opposite. This is from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. When he would see that his disciples had a disagreement or conflict with each other, he would bring them together and he'd sit them down and say, right, now I know the two of you don't get along. Now I want you to say something about this other person that you genuinely appreciate. Right? So now that devotee has to search within him or herself for something that they appreciate about this person that they don't like. Why does that work? It's because you're reversing the samskar. I've got a samskar for disliking this person. Therefore, now I'm doing the opposite. I'm consciously practicing looking for something in this person that I genuinely admire. Not just looking for it. I'm going to reflect upon that, and I'm going to actually, painful as it is, Prabhu, okay, your kirtan's not that bad. That's as much as I could do at this time, right? You get there slowly over time. But we're going to go in that direction. You practice the opposite. It's a great science. Some devotees, I feel very lusty. What am I going to do? You're going to find a way to channel that mode of passion, because lust means passion. You're going to find a healthy outlet for that passion. Because if you don't find a healthy outlet, it comes out in unhealthy ways. It's a real science. Right? So anyway, those are some ideas like that. But this is also why we need association. I have to be honest with you, I personally have a suspicion that many devotees don't have very close association. That's my real suspicion. And I don't mean we hang out and have pizza together at the program. I'm very suspicious that there are many devotees who often do not trust each other enough to be vulnerable, and it's a problem. That's my honest suspicion. Anyway, don't go into a side point. Is that okay? Let's answer your question. All right. We should stop. Who's in charge of timing? Should we stop here or we stop? Okay. Thank you very much. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Janitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. It's okay. Thank you so much for your encouragement. Thank you.
Maybe he's well. Okay, yeah, four reds. All three of them. Inside.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare